All right, we are here with Patrick Harbeson for episode number 28 of the Trilogy Lacrosse Theater. Last episode, I said it was episode 28. It was actually 27. This is really episode 28, so pumped to have you. Got through some technical difficulties, and we have you live coming in from Utah, right?
Yeah, inside the PLL bubble. We're on our off day. Had back-to-back games. I don't even know what day it is anymore, but I think it's Thursday. So we played Tuesday, Wednesday. Finally got our first win last night, and we have our off day today. So excited to rest up, be on the podcast, and see where this takes us.
Nice, yeah. Congrats on that first win. The 11 p.m. start was a little tough for me. I watched the first five. Actually, I watched the whole first quarter, but then I had to cash out because the 6 a.m. wake up from the kids was not going to treat me well if I stayed up the whole time.
Yeah, we had a bunch of guys on our team. Obviously a lot of guys on the East Coast, but saying that it was way past their bedtime. They were ready to get to bed right after the game ended.
Yeah, what was different about last night? How were you guys able to? Because it was a 1-goal game, right?
Yeah, 1-goal game. We were up 2 with maybe a couple minutes left in the game, and I actually turned the ball over, so that's still fresh in my mind. And they went down and hit a 2-pointer, but all in all together, I just think we're finally kind of coming together as a team, a collective unit. You're seeing guys like Sergio Perkovic having a crazy season. Hitting all these 2 bombs. The addition of Miles Jones is drawing a lot of attention, and Garnsey was able to put the overtime goal in the back of the net. And then defensively, I just think we're playing very sound, and our goalie Tim Troutner is just standing on his head, bailing us out with a few saves. And but all in all, to get our first win, I just think we kind of came together as a collective unit and didn't necessarily point fingers when mistakes happened. Kind of just owned it and supported each other, so it was awesome.
Well, I actually read an article that was talking about, at the beginning, I guess it was more last year, but it's probably still working through it. You guys are like half Ohio Machine and half Notre Dame, right? It's like there's different guys, but and working through those 2 systems and trying to coach St. Laurent, trying to match those up and mash those together. I got to imagine now that you have a year under your belt, now that you got some new faces, you've had a couple games to like work out the kinks and really get everyone into their strengths, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 10 Notre Dame guys on our team, so we're really, Notre Dame heavy. And
sorry to hear
that. We played against them. I don't even know if I beat them in my 3-4 years that we played them, but just that's a testament to Coach Corrigan and Jerry Byrne, who was there, who's now the head coach at Harvard. The defensive guys, I mean, we use all the Notre Dame terminology, and even now, like sometimes my head's spinning, like, what does this mean? Like, I have to ask guys like Glaze and Jack Neer, like what they're referring to, just because they're such on the, tight same page, and outside guys like myself, just trying to catch up to their speed. But it's great. I mean, we have built-in cohesiveness, especially on the defensive end of the field, which I think is, as of right now, is kind of the backbone of our team and is really propelling our team as a whole. So.
Awesome. Well, congrats. And I know it's fun this is the first time we've been doing these since early March, but this is the first time we're actually talking to someone who's like mid-season. Everyone else has been, no one was playing for a while. So it's been fun. It's fun to kind of get to talk lacrosse in it live. Like this happened last night, or like we're looking forward to this. So we'll get more into the PLL later on, but I don't know if you know, we actually grew up pretty close. I grew up primarily in Severna Park, Maryland. So I was
oh, no way.
Yeah.
Where'd you go? Severna Park High School or Severn?
I did. I went to Severna Park High School for 11th and 12th grade, so I graduated from there. But you're an Annapolis guy, and would you have gone to Broadneck or Annapolis High?
Yeah, so I would have gone to Broadneck. I kind of lived in that bubble, but my zip code is Annapolis. I live 5 minutes from the Naval Academy. I can run over there, over the Naval Academy Bridge, and then probably 10, 15 minutes from Severna Park. But I went to St. John the Evangelist Middle School in Severna Park.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And did you ever make it to Cantlers?
Oh, gosh, I worked at Cantler. So that was like my first job. Yeah, it was my first job.
I did too. I worked there for, I think, 4 summers. That was one of my favorite places to work.
That's everyone that is like always visits Maryland or Baltimore, and there's like, oh, where's the best seafood crab place? I always point them to Jimmy Cantler's. It's unbelievable. right
That's
on the
funny.
water
I didn't
too.
realize we
So
were brothers in Cantler. Were you
yeah,
working down on the dock or were you up in the restaurant?
no. So again, it was my first job, and thankfully, just through connections, I walked in as a server, and I had no serving restaurant experience. So I made a lot of money that summer, but I will admit I was not very good. Like cutting the
That's a tight
paper
knit
to
crew. A lot of those servers have been there like, 15,
for
20 years.
years. So I mean, I didn't get the great shifts that everyone else did, but at the same time, like you said, people work there forever and have worked their way up from just like busing, hostess to finally making it there. And I kind of just walked in just through connections and had a fun summer.
Man, I would have worn my Cantler shirt if I had known. But how did
Yeah.
you? So was there ever discussion about going to Broadneck, or was it always you kind of knew you were going to go the private school path?
Yeah.
You went to
I
middle
kind
school?
of knew I was going to go the private school path. Kind of grew up in the like the private schools, middle school, and then for high school, I was really looking at St. Mary's of Annapolis and DeMatha, which is closer to DC, and opted to go to DeMatha just based off of I really wanted to play football. Football is my main love. I kind of bring that football aspect onto the field, but being like 5'7", no pun intended, kind of shorted me a little bit on the football side of things. But I still
You're
had a
listed
great.
5'9" in the program.
All right, well,
I was like, I don't think he's 5'9", but it's true.
nah, scouting report. I am not 5'9", nowhere close. Yeah, but happy that I went to DeMatha. I mean, met my best friends there. Great academic school that really helped me with kind of the work-life balance, or just the discipline and multitasking when I got to college. And it was like a 45-minute commute every day, but it was definitely worth it. And I definitely thought I was going to transfer my freshman sophomore year, going to school with all boys, but it was probably the best decision for me. And nothing against St. Mary's Annapolis. They have a great lacrosse program. I have friends that went there, but DeMatha was just the right school for me.
Well, and here we'll get a little throwback to your DeMatha days. I gotta say, maybe the reason Paul is like so savvy with the social media,
Oh
DeMatha
gosh.
kills it. DeMatha kills it on YouTube. Like every of your football games or lacrosse games, and this is back from 2009, 2010. They do an awesome job of putting that on the internet, which is great for me.
Yeah.
So you remember this?
I remember it. So before you play it, or you can play, it's fine. But I was just gonna say, I was the backup running back, and I mean, even being the backup running back is kind of like an honor at DeMatha. But our starter went to Iowa. He was like the Big Ten rusher of the year. Ended up leaving and didn't make it pro, but he was like 6 foot 230 as a senior in high school. And again, like you look at me and him standing next to each other, and it's no brainer. Like this kid was, bound to do great things on the football field. But he was injured this game, and I actually either got the start or he got injured like the first play, and I played the rest of the game. But before you start again, like our offensive line here from left to right is Alabama, Pittsburgh, Delaware, Virginia, and then Alabama. So like as great of a play this is, like playing in front of those guys was made everyone's life easier. So
Nick Saban's a big DeMatha fan, huh?
yeah.
Well, here you go. Here's the high school glory days. It's a helmet flying off. Love that.
Yeah, I mean, they just made it easy. There's a big hole to run through. Maybe just ran through one tackle and just went to the house.
And playing with guys like that are going. Obviously, you said football was your first love, but playing with guys like that are these like, I'm assuming they're 5-star recruits, right? Some of the top recruits in the country. Like, what does that do for your competitive edge? Do you think that influence or shape your ability to play sports?
For sure. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to go to DeMatha is I wanted to challenge myself. And even when I talk to kids today that are looking at DeMatha versus other schools, it's, I constantly say, you got to look at yourself in the mirror. Do you want to be surrounded by some of the top athletes in the world that are going to go off and do crazy things, on and off the field? Or do you kind of want to either be the man at your local public high school? Do you kind of want to fit in with and go the easy route? And for me, like, I just have that gut feeling that, like, if I'm not challenging myself, then I'm doing myself a disservice. So I knew, like, my back was against the walls coming from Annapolis. Anne Arundel County football compared to Prince George's County football is night and day. But I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to, play with the best of the best. I wanted to see how I fit in. And that's what alerted me to DeMatha and walking the halls with guys that, are in the NBA still today, that are in the NFL still today. That's the atmosphere that I wanted constantly on an everyday basis.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing the talent that DeMatha has put out into all the pro sports leagues. And now you grew up. So was your dad at the Naval? Because he's military, correct?
Yeah. So both my parents are military. My dad actually went to the University of Maryland and then went did OCS, Officer Candidate School, and so that's how he got into the military. And before we moved to Annapolis, we were stationed in Japan. So I lived in Japan for 2 years, and then he got a job at the Pentagon and just wanted to be in Annapolis. He's from Bowie, Maryland, so knew about Annapolis and just wanted to be close to family and friends. And then he himself made the commute to the Pentagon every day, which was further than the Matha, but kind of just a testament to his hard work and selflessness for our family.
Did he drop you off at school on the way? Was that father's?
No, he had to leave early. He left earlier than I did. He probably had to leave the house at like 5:30, probably earlier than that too. And then I would leave the house around 6:30 to get there around 7:15. But at the time there wasn't many Annapolis kids going to DeMatha, which has now changed, but I was able to catch a ride my first 2 years before I got my license. So it made my commute a little easier, but still a stress for my mom, who actually my freshman year, I lived with my relatives in Prince George's County. My cousin was a senior at DeMatha. I forgot about this. My mom was I think my dad was stationed overseas, and my mom, I have a younger sister too, and my sister was going to school in Anne Arundel County, so she had to drive her to school, and it was just going to be too much of a burden to get me to DeMatha. So I lived my freshman year with my relatives in Prince George's County.
Well, almost like a prep school year.
Yeah,
your sister ended up
it
playing
was unique,
right? Is she still there?
Yeah, she played at Syracuse. She's a year behind me, but we're in the same grade. So she arguably had a kind of like a better career than I did. She, I think, went to 3 Final Fours. They didn't win, but she went to 3 Final Fours, and she played defense, and she had a good career and met some of her best friends at Syracuse as well.
Well, in DeMatha, I mean, you guys had success while you were at DeMatha as well. Any guys on that DeMatha team that you still play with in the PLL now?
There's none in the PLL. Paul's obviously a DeMatha guy. And then there's guys that are 4 years younger than me that are in the PLL. They can't play this year just due to their military commitments. But Grayson Terrain played at the Naval Academy and a freak athlete. He probably was kind of a better 2-sport athlete than I was. Played varsity football and lacrosse and could have probably played both at the right school. And then Johnny Surdick played at Army and was an All-American. The kid's like 6'5". I remember coaching him actually. And funny story is like I think he was playing defense, and he used to be he transferred from like midfield to defense. So that gap year where he was still learning how to play, he was just really reckless. And as most like high school kids, was kind of just stubborn. And I was coaching like the DeMatha program in the off season during the summer, and I had to like take away his deep pole and made him play close defense with a short stick. And I totally forgot about it until I met up with him last year after our game, and he brought it up to me. I was just laughing about it.
So those are always fun stories when guys come back and tell you that, and you're like, oh, maybe that helped in some way, right?
Yeah. Well, it also shows that I'm a lot older than these guys now too. It's like and it's funny that like in our locker room, I think I'm the third oldest now, and I feel like I'm a rookie. I feel like I'm young, but I'm definitely getting up there. I think it's Kyle, Joe, and then myself. So
Wow. That's
starting
a
to
big
age a
jump
little bit.
from Kyle and Joe to you, though.
Yeah,
You're
it's a couple of
you're
years,
throwing my
but
age in there, or a couple of years younger than me.
yeah.
We'll look at pull up a clip here. So and I want to talk about this because you were clearly a two-way middie in high school, right? You did everything, or I guess probably more primarily offensive in high school, but I'm sure you got back and played some D.
Yeah, I actually like our team. I did whatever our team needed, but I think I played some attack too. Just they needed someone who could kind of carry the rock and distribute a little bit. But yeah, this is our championship game, my junior year, and I don't know how much time was really left. Maybe a couple of minutes, but they were doubling and kind of just split the defense here.
Is this against Georgetown Prep? Is that who this is?
So this is against St. Mary's Riken, and they're in the WCAC, the Washington Catholic League, and it's our championship game. Kind of just split the double.
Double defender fall down, and that looks like it's on turf too. This isn't like wet grass. This is like on skates back here.
Yeah, just got lucky, I guess. Just made a move, kind of made both of them miss, and easy to put an open netter, and then the embarrassing jumping up and getting hit by my teammates and falling down, but helped secure a win for sure. And I think it's kind of crazy to think that's that's DeMatha's last championship in lacrosse. Gonzaga's kind of just run the WCAC and the DMV in general for the past 10 plus years.
Got to get the Stags back to their glory, right?
I know. I'm hoping
they need more off-season training from Coach Harbeson, putting short sticks in their future All-Americans' hands.
If I make it back to Maryland, I for sure will. I'm living out in Scottsdale, Arizona right now, and I still try to talk to as many kids as possible. I always tell the coach there to like connect me with any kids that are teetering the line between going to DeMatha and anywhere else, and it's actually cool. There's a bunch of PG County kids that I worked with when I was in college who were probably like in 3rd or 4th grade, and they are all going to DeMatha now, and one of them is actually Kyle Harrison's nephew, and it's going to be really exciting to see him, wearing the red, white, and blue, and having DeMatha across his chest, and all those guys that I kind of worked with, staying together and going to high school together. So hopefully we have a good crew coming in.
Yeah, it's got to be rewarding seeing those guys that were little bobbleheads in your work.
Yeah.
Right now they're playing high school lacrosse. Is there a long line of DeMatha guys that have gone on to UVA? Because I'm trying to think through. I think off my head actually, but
lacrosse-wise, I might be the only one.
Yeah.
There might be a couple of football guys. Actually, there was 3 football guys there when I went to when I was a freshman. But lacrosse-wise, yeah, I was the only one. I think I was the only one. But I don't really know how I got there. I played for the Baltimore Crabs club team, and kind of just went to the right tournaments. And speaking of like the right tournaments, I think the coaches caught my eye at like Blue Chip and just playing in all the prestigious tournaments throughout this summer. But I remember it was like the end of the summer going into my junior year, and I was just so lacrossed out. I think I did like 4 tournaments that summer, and my club team got invited to do the UVA team camp, and a lot of guys opted out just due to it being like the end of the summer and tired and gearing up for football. And my dad asked me if I wanted to do it. I said no. I think it was the same night or the same weekend as like an OAR concert, so I kind of just wanted to have a little fun,
like a true Annapolis kid.
I know that
OAR, Great Wolf, or wherever it is.
Yeah, it's Jiffy Lube or something like that. It sounds pathetic, but I'm glad that he kind of pushed for it, because that was like some of the best lacrosse I played that summer, and had a great tournament. Our team won it, and I just felt like I played the best lacrosse in front of the UVA coaches. And I remember the last day of the team camp, right before our last game, Dom came up to me, and I don't know if you've met Dom, but he's very, I don't want to say like soft-spoken. I can't find the right way to describe him, but he's not really gonna hype you up for no reason. But he came up to me and first time I talked to him at all camp, I knew who he was, and he just said, hey, Patrick, you had a great week at camp, and you'll be hearing from us very soon. And I was just like, awesome. But then I was like, I don't really know what that means, because none of my family members ever went through the recruiting process. But sure enough, like, UVA was the first school to reach out to me. They were the school to recruit me the entire time, like every week getting a letter and just genuinely wanting to get to know me and wanting me to get to know them. And it was just a great process. At the beginning, I was like, there's no way I'm going to Virginia, maybe a little self-doubt, but towards the end, the way it all played out, it was the best school, and kind of just did a pros and cons list with the other schools that I was looking at, and UVA ended up on top, and it was kind of just a no-brainer with what I wanted to accomplish on the field and what I wanted in this school academically.
And had you been to Charlottesville prior to that team camp, or was that your first experience being there?
That was my first experience. Never been there.
That's a good selling point. Winning the championship there. I'm assuming you probably played like the finals on Klockner or something, right? Or like at least got to see it.
Yeah, they gave us like a kind of like a brief tour, and my dad and I kind of just drove around the campus, drove around off campus, just kind of feel for the school. So it was awesome. UVA kind of sells itself. It's, how pretty the campus is, and being in Charlottesville, Virginia. And then the coaches speak for themselves. Dom Starsia, Hall of Famer, Mark Van Arsdale, arguably one of the smartest coaches in the game. And then at the time, their assistant was Hannon Wright, who ended up jumping into the military and is now a lawyer. And Hannon is a fiery guy and kind of the same kind of passion that I have. And so it kind of just all worked out.
And was it your freshman year that you guys won the national championship? Was it 2011 your freshman year?
Yeah, it was our freshman year that we won the national championship. So that set the expectations high. Every year after that, it was like championship or bust. And that's kind of the mentality that, I have, but also that Virginia has as well. It's, we're there to obviously get better each day and better ourselves and become better, people on and off the field. But for me and for my teammates at the time, it was like, we want to be playing on the last day and hosting a trophy, and fortunate enough to do it in 2011. And, arguably the 2010 team was probably better. I wasn't on the team then, but, you had the Brattons were juniors, Brian Carroll, Kenny Clausen. They were awesome team. And, I think that 2011 season was kind of, in my mind, and again, I wasn't there for 2010, but with some of the tragedies that happened, it was just kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think, some of the tragedies with Yardley Love and Will Barrow, if anything, maybe that 2011 season kind of made things a little bit better, even though those, again, are tragedies. But, able to win it in 2011 and after the tragedies that happened, I think we're overdue and necessary for guys like Dom and some of the seniors on the team. So,
yeah, and certainly I think there's nothing that brings a team together tighter than going through things like that. I think the guys that we've had on this, a lot of them who have gone on to win championships, it's not always been like, oh yeah, we were just the best skilled team and everyone came together and won. It's like, no, we had some kind of like really bonding moment. A lot of times that's through difficulty.
Yeah, I would also say the bonding moment for us was when we unfortunately had to remove Ramel and Shamel Bratton off our team, arguably the best athletes and lacrosse players in college lacrosse at the time. And we kind of just rallied around each other, thankful to leaders like Bray Malfris, Steele Stanwyck, Adam Gilman, kind of really brought us together. And we rallied behind it. And I would say after winning championships at high school, college, pro levels, there's a little bit of luck as well. And, I look back to like my freshman year when we won it. We played Bucknell in the first round and we were losing to Bucknell. And I think we jumped into a 10-man ride. We needed the ball back and they shot it from defense to offense. It was clearly a shot, but the refs called it a pass and we went down, scored, got the face-off scored, and then went to overtime and won it. So fate was maybe on our side, luck, whatever you want to call it, but I think you need a little bit of luck to win as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and some hard nosed defense. I'm going to pull a video here that see if you remember this. UVA versus Hopkins. You know what year this is?
Yeah, I know this play. It's one of those plays. I'm not necessarily too proud of it. I think it might have been a little bit too high of a hit, but I know exactly this play. And Guida is a great player. Got to the middle, got slashed or held by LaPierre on ball, and then gets to the heart of our defense and kind of just slide and get him pretty good. But I will say he grabs on EMO and puts one in the back of the net. But yeah, I know this play pretty well, and it's funny. Like my dad hated this play. He didn't talk to me for like a full week after this. Just kind of upset with the high hit from me, and just kind of worried that it was going to affect my reputation and whatnot. And so he wasn't too upset, but it was a pretty good pop.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's similar to the Garrett Apple thing this week in real time. You see it like, oh, that's probably a little high hit, but then they play it back in slow mo, and you're like, oh, that looks way worse. Like this slow motion video, looks way worse because it looks like you had a big run, but in the heat of the moment, you're going full speed. You probably didn't even realize that he had lost a stick or lost a ball, right? You're coming full speed looking for that big hit. Sometimes it's harder than people think. People think, oh, it's like, but when you watch in slow mo, absolutely. But when you are living it in full speed with the adrenaline going, like you don't have all that time to make that decision or be like, oh, this is going to be too high.
Yeah, I don't think you have the time to really process. And I think if you think about it, you're gonna end up being in limbo where you probably don't slide, and then say he still has the ball, he's gonna put it in the back of the net. And I kind of look at that kind of like that play specifically is kind of like a wide receiver in football with a safety like Ed Reed or a linebacker like Ray Lewis over the middle. Like someone gets to the middle, they catch it, you have less than a second to make a reaction, and you're kind of going for Bob. I will admit, it kind of was a high hit, but I'm still going to slide. Like, if that's in the pros today, I'm still going to have to slide. And so it's a split decision. You don't slide, something might happen. You slide. You take the penalty, or hopefully you don't have a penalty and you lay the body. But pretty big hit. Yeah.
Well, and one thing I wanted to ask, I think obviously 2011 you were second midfield playing offense, and then 2012, 2013 you kind of got relegated back to that short 16 midi role, and then back towards your senior season back to a little bit more of an offensive threat. How was that transition for you mentally? Was that something you were like, I'll do whatever I need to do, or it's gonna be hard going from I'm a second midi on a national championship team. What, you're gonna put me at d-middie?
Yeah, so I think like my college career was unique, and I tell kids now about my career, and I tell them as they go off to college is just do whatever is asked of you and do it 100%. And if you have problems with it, like address it. Because for me, and I think a lot of people that play Division I, college lacrosse in general, is you're coming from high school where you're arguably the best player. And at DeMatha, I was arguably one of the better players. I was an All-American. So I'm going to Virginia. I got recruited as an offensive player. And, I was expected to play offense, but, my freshman year, I stepped into the second midfield line when the Browns were dismissed. Second year, we brought back a lot of guys, and what was needed to put in. I kind of took it personal, to be honest, and I took it like almost as if it was. I took it as offense, and in reality, like given my role now in the pros, is like I should have just taken that role and ran with it, and been the best defensive midfielder I could have possibly have been. But kind of had kind of played with a lot of And I think that's one of my biggest regrets in college is just, my dad would always say, because I would be upset, he's like, you got to bloom where planted. And in hindsight, that I just ended up being a defensive midfielder and been the best player I could have been, the best teammate I could have been. And I think, in doing so, and if you're able to get 40 guys or however many guys we had on our roster to accept their role, and what Dom always preaches, like, your role is the most important, whether that's the starting goalie, starting middie, four-string goalie, or it's a big season, and me not being able to accept it, being angry at the world, I think affected my play on the field. Went back.
So you started out, as a second line midfielder on a national championship team your freshman year, and then got asked to move back and play short stick d-middie. What was that process like for you mentally, and how did you take that and eventually take that to a pro career where you're playing primarily defense?
Yeah, well, one thing, I'm thankful for the experience of kind of playing offense and defense. I think it's helped with my skill set. But to be honest, mentally, going from defense to offense and kind of switching it around, kind of, I felt like if I was able to just embrace the defensive role early on in my career, I think I could have helped our team more. I definitely resented it when I got moved to defense in my sophomore year, and kind of just struggled with it mentally, just coming from high school where, I was arguably one of the better players in my area, and got recruited to Virginia as an offensive player. I kind of envisioned myself on that side of the ball, and then getting switched. I took it personally, which I shouldn't have. So that's like kind of one of my biggest regrets in college, is just not accepting my role on
And
the
how did
team.
how did that manifest itself? Like, do you think you were more withdrawn than you would have been? Like, what did you do, or what could you have done differently, you think, if you'd really embraced it? Going
Yeah,
back.
I think I just would have been a better teammate, and I would have been a better player on the field. And I took it so personal on the field that I was playing defense, and I think it in one way it helped with kind of just my aggression on the field. Like, I literally played very, very hard. Just I didn't like to be on the defensive field. I saw myself more as like kind of like an offensive threat or whatever it may be. But I just think I could have been a better teammate to everyone, and just accepting my role and knowing that, like, the coaches trust me to be on the field where there's guys on the sideline that would have done anything to play whatever role on the field that the coaches needed. And I think that sophomore year we lost to Notre Dame, and Coach Starja always preaches, everyone has a role in the team, whether it's the starting midfielder, backup goalie, in my situation, the short stick defensive midfielder. And if everyone accepts their role to the fullest, we'll be a great team. And for me, not accepting it to the fullest, like, I feel like I let our team down that year. And if I just accepted it and been the best defensive midfielder I could have been, I think, I look back on the situation, maybe it wouldn't have directly correlated, but in my mind, we could have had a better season. So I tell kids all the time, like, when they go off to college, is just accept your role, whatever that may be, and do it to the fullest. And the other thing is, like, I think it's more of like kind of a life lesson, is if you have an issue with something, you need to address it. And for me, kind of internalizing it, I don't think really helped my situation at all. Like, going to practice every day and kind of being ticked off didn't help at all. And I think if I kind of addressed it with the coaching staff, and kind of at least let them see where I was coming from, even though, like, that might have not changed the situation, getting it off my chest and being able to address it, maybe they could have, again, seen where I was coming from, and kind of could relate to some of the feelings that I had. But later on in my career, I think my junior year, I played defensive midfield again, just because of an injury to one of our d-middies. I started out playing offense the first, I think, 3 games, and then we had an injury, and I played defensive midfield my junior year, and then senior year I got moved back to the offensive end of the field and played strictly kind of that offensive two-way role where I was on the wings of face-offs and stayed on offense. So I think it helped my career in terms of like pro lacrosse because I kind of have that like I play defensive midfield primarily, but I have that offensive mindset where when I get the ball going from D to O, I'm thinking, how can I create my own or how can I set up my teammates, which I think is beneficial and what you need in pro lacrosse today.
Well, speaking of pro lacrosse, we're joined by
Harvey.
PLL
What's going on?
And Trilogy lacrosse partner Ryan Boyle. Ryan, how we doing? You guys coming from like four rooms away from each other?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our production meeting got switched around, and I know you guys got switched around, so I jumped on as soon as I could. So.
Well, we're just talking. We're talking the path from offensive middie to d-middie back to offensive middie, and then we'll get into the PLL and pro back to the defensive side. But you're not
talking about how Pat and I have the same taste in artwork.
No, I actually was gonna bring it up earlier in the call that everyone I've talked to seems to have the same artist, but
yeah, right over here.
Yeah, we're just big fan, you know.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you, Pat, is I was an offensive midfielder in high school and switched to defense in college as well, but I went all the way to the defensive end. And I think for me, I always say one of the biggest benefits to that was I was basically a blank slate. Like I played midfield, but I was truly an offensive midfielder, knew nothing about sliding or second slides or any of that. So I feel like I didn't have bad habits. I didn't have language that I had to like scrub to learn the new language. Did you have that at UVA, or had you had enough defensive work and training over the years that you felt like you still like had a base to work off
of? I think a little bit of both. Like I got reps in defense in high school, and I think in high school you're just kind of athletic enough to get by. And then in college, I mean, shoot, I remember the first few days, and I hate one-on-ones. Like I never really do one-on-ones in any of the coaching that I do, but I remember doing one-on-ones and going up against like Shamel Bratton and Ramel, and I was just exposed. Like, you know, rule number one on defense, no top side. Like I couldn't do it to save my life. You know, that's just my freshman year and guys being a couple years older than me. But in terms of like two slides, I think I had a decent concept, but it was still a huge learning curve. Getting used to college defenses and having coverages, slide packages, different ways to defend two-man back at X. Like it was a big learning curve for me. And I think, you know, maybe that's why I didn't step on the field right away as a freshman. I think Coach Starja always says, like, you have to earn my trust on the defense end of the field before I can put you on the offensive end of the field, or before I can even put you on the field in general, which makes complete sense. But my first, you know, a couple of weeks of college lacrosse, my head was for sure spinning on the defense end of the field.
We seem to have figured it out, and you guys, you know, had a great run with your UVA. Was the MLL at the time? Was that something because you mentioned guys like Adam Gittleman and guys that when you were a freshman were older, who had clearly gone on and started their careers, and a lot of UVA guys were playing at that point. Was the MLL something that you grew up with in Annapolis for the Bayhawks, and was that something you like saw as a goal, or was that something that like you were considering, or what was your mindset heading into your senior year as you're looking at graduation?
Yeah, so in terms of like pro lacrosse, the Kelly family is one of our like family friends. So Brendan Kelly, who owned the Bayhawks at the time, is a family friend of ours. I grew up right down the street from Brendan's brothers, who Brendan's nephew is like my best friend in the entire world. So I've been around the pro lacrosse game. I would go to games, be on the sideline, be in the suites. And like just playing lacrosse at the highest form was always my goal. And you know, going into my senior year, I think they had the draft in January, but I knew that I probably wasn't going to get drafted just based off, you know, my statistics. But you know, I knew regardless that I wanted to play, and I think it kind of fueled the fire my senior year. And seeing my friends and peers get drafted, like, you know, and especially knowing that I can compete and play with them, I was like, I can do this. I want to do it. You know, I have that chip on my shoulder where I'm like, why didn't I get drafted? Even though deep down inside, I kind of knew why, but Yeah, so my senior year, I didn't get drafted. I saw my friends get drafted. They had great senior years. I think I had a pretty decent senior year. And then to see them all go play that summer and kind of me be on the sidelines, so to speak, where I wasn't on the roster, I didn't make a practice squad, I didn't get picked up. I really wanted to play, and they had the supplemental draft, I think the fall of the first year that I was out, and I put my name in the supplemental draft. And during that whole process leading up to it, I only had one phone call, and that was from Coach Seaman of the Denver Outlaws. And, he called, talked about how he was interested in potentially drafting me, how, he saw me as a two-way guy in the pro league, that I played offense, defense in my career, was on the wings of face-offs. And it's a funny story. He kind of just asked, like, hey, are any other teams talking to you? And I kind of just lied, to be honest. And I was like, yeah, I've heard from the Bayhawks. I heard from the Florida launch. I'm hoping to get drafted. They didn't tell me where, but I'm expected to get picked up. And that was a complete lie. Like, I didn't hear from anyone. Like,
It's amazing.
Yeah, not even BK.
You told Coach Seaman that since that happened? Did you tell him, like, hey, that was complete fabrication?
No, I didn't tell him at all. Like, I wanted to be drafted and picked up and played. So, and like, not even BK was like talking to me, because at that time, like, the Bayhawks had, like, crazy amount of talent. But fortunate enough to get picked up in the supplemental draft by the Outlaws. And I just remember, I was like, I had probably one opportunity at, making this roster. I had one opportunity at, like, making a first impression. And I trained, like, the hardest I ever trained that quote unquote off season. I was living and working in DC, and any waking moment that I had, like, I was working out, and I was probably in the best shape of my life then. I remember going to Denver, and the altitude difference, and just being, like, fine. And I was able to compete, and I was fortunate enough to play, I think, in the first 5 or 6 games in Denver before the Canadian influence came from the box season. And they had some great players at the time, but so I kind of got put on the practice squad, which in pro lacrosse means, like, you're pretty much cut. So I was kind of just in limbo again, and I got a call from Coach Cottle and Spencer Ford, and they were like, hey, we're interested in picking you up. Like, we don't know if we can dress you yet, but will you make all of our practices? And at the time, the Bayhawks relied heavily on, like, their practice squad guys.
Yeah, they had like 60 players. They'd practice 3 times a week.
Yeah, exactly.
The whole summer league going.
Yeah, they would legit have guys travel from, like, Philly to come for practices. And just being in DC, I was like, yeah, I can obviously make it. So, and I wanted to play. I wanted to be fighting for a roster spot. So I got picked up. The first game was actually against the Denver Outlaws, and I didn't play that game, but I kind of earned my stripes in practices. And it's funny, I actually played offense in Denver, like, strictly offensive midfielder. And I remember my first game, it was against Boston. So you were probably on that team. And so, Ryan, you might have been. I don't know if you were still playing at the time either, but 2015 season, were you playing?
No.
No, gotcha. Well, the first game.
15 was your last season.
Wait, what? Yeah, maybe that was my last year.
Your last, and 18 was my last.
15, yeah, 15, yeah.
What happened?
No, 14 was my last. 14. This isn't about me. This is about you, Pat.
Yeah. Well. Anyways, it was my first game. We were in Boston. I remember the head, like, going against. I think Rabel was on. No, Rabel. It was Seaball was just got to Boston. Rob Emery was on the team.
Yes.
And my first like shift, I get stuck on defense, and I had to go against now my teammate Brent Adams, who I think is arguably the fastest guy in the world. And you guys know pro lacrosse, like, you're supposed to pick the guy up super high as a defensive player. Middies elevate. Brent was the last guy out of the box, and I just got smoked, completely smoked. Brent gets the ball, runs right by me. I get scored on. Jesse Schwartzman, if you guys know Jesse, like, Jesse expects every single guy to, like, get like, you're supposed to lock up every single offensive player. You're not ever allowed to give rollbacks. And I just remember getting cursed out by Jesse Schwartzman, like, And here I am, like this rookie that has never played pro lacrosse, just getting smoked by the fastest guy in the league. And that was my welcome to pro lacrosse moment.
You could take solace in the fact that Brent Adams has run by a lot of guys, and Jesse Schwartzman has yelled at a lot of guys. So not the first guy that Adams has run past. And, I think half the league during Schwartzman time probably got, an earful from him. So you could just take at least some solace in that.
Yeah, that was my first game, and I actually had 1-1. I had 1 goal, 1 assist, and it was like a reassuring moment for me that, like, hey, I can play in this league. And when I got over to Chesapeake, they said, hey, we only want you to play defensive midfield. Is there going to be any issues? And based off my college career, I was like, look, I know that, like, I don't have much say in this, and if I want to stick around, I'll do whatever it takes and play defensive midfield, and the rest is kind of, history. Got a lot of reps and moved around in the league a little bit in the MLL, and I'm thankful for the experiences. I'm thankful for the opportunities from everyone that kind of took a chance on me.
And you won the championship in 2017 with that Ohio team, which, a large core of that is still together with you on the Redwoods, right? I got to imagine that's great to have those relationships there.
Yeah, absolutely. We had Coach Nat St. Laurent, who was our defense coordinator at the time. Kyle Harbeson, obviously everyone knows Kyle. He was on our team. So yeah, we have a good group of guys over with the Redwoods, and that year was super special in 2017. Being able to play against guys like Kyle, who, I grew up watching and trying to emulate off of his YouTube clips. And then guys like Tommy Schreiber, who is arguably the best player in the entire world and might be a better person off the field than he is on the field, which is, crazy to think. Same thing with Kyle. We had a great group, and, Scotty Rogers, Kyle Bernlohr, who I think is arguably one of the best goalies in the country. We had a special group, so it was an awesome year, and it was a great experience to play in Ohio at the time.
Talk about, you go into the locker room and there's kind of Kyle Harrison and now he's your teammate, right? But how many interactions did it take you to be like, all right, play it cool, play it like was it one? Was it like 3? Where you're like, okay, like I'm, he's my teammate, he's my peer. It's not like there's, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure the first one you're just like, okay, I'm in the same locker room. He's having a speech, and I guess we all kind of like project what people are going to be. And what was that projection like versus, how Kyle, who he really is and kind of how he is a leader on the team.
Yeah. So my first experience playing against Kyle was my first game with the Bayhawks. We went to Ohio to go play against the Ohio Machine, and I think we went to overtime or whatever, and for some reason they sent me out there. First game, it was overtime. They're like, all right, you're guarding Kyle Harrison. I was like, what? Like, you want me to go guard Kyle Harrison on top of the box? I was nervous as anything. Thankfully he didn't score me, but I was circling everything. I was like, okay, I think he's gonna go right to left split, jump down the alley. Like,
I've seen this.
So I was nervous.
This before.
I know how this plays out. Like that was going through my head. Like, I know how this is gonna play out. But at the time, Ohio also had 2 other good middies, Schreiber and Peter Baum. But I got my matchup against Kyle. That was my first experience. And then when I got to Ohio, I was like, damn, like I'm gonna be able to play with like Kyle Harrison. This is gonna be like the coolest thing in the world. Kind of a guy that's paving the path for a lot of lacrosse players today. And first experience was like, I think it was really like, dang, this is Kyle. Like, he's not like, you have like this, this picture, like, when he walks in the room and you think like there's this light behind him and, the music's playing in a movie, and then you meet Kyle. He's like, hey, I'm Kyle. And you're like the nicest dude in the world. Like this, just a great guy that just like wants to be just one of the guys, doesn't want, any notoriety, really, I said it in another interview, like regarding like Greg Renly, and I think Kyle Harrison, Greg Renly, and those 2 are like the nicest guys in lacrosse that I've ever come across. And for their pedigree and, for who they are, like, they could be like, they don't have to be nice to like the average Joe, or like they wait after, games to sign autographs for kids. Like they understand the big picture, and to be able to play with Kyle and to be his teammate is kind of just like an honor now. And, to see his leadership style, like the game doesn't faze him at all. Like you guys have seen me probably in the games on the sidelines. I'm like the biggest spaz, and Kyle's just like cool, calm, and collective, like a reassuring, like, hey guys, everything's going to be okay. And you're like, okay, if this guy can be cool, calm, and collective, everything's going to be okay. So great experience to play with him.
Well, and that team that you guys have, it seems like there's a lot of chemistry and camaraderie, but you need hype guys and you need chill guys, and I think you need that blend. That's the only way that you can have success. The yin and the yang there. Take a look at like a couple things. This one I think might be in your other highlight clip, but this one I love so much because I'm pretty sure Callum Robinson is commentating in this, and he calls you Habs. That's fine.
So close, so many overtime and 1-point games. How do the players explain that?
Yeah, there's just, the concentration and talent in this league. Oh, Habs.
And more talent.
Habs.
These guys need to stop scoring. Send it up top. Overtime and 1-point games. How do the players explain that?
Yeah, there's just, the concentration and talent in this league. Oh, Habs.
And more talent.
That's like a parting of the seas there. That the hop step into the 2 threat. Have you scored a 2-bomb in your career?
No, I don't. I don't know why guys would ever think that I'm gonna attempt.
There's another clip,
like
almost identical.
I think I ended up getting jacked up in that one by the Atlas, but I'm not pulling up from 2. I don't have that range. I just kind of look for a little sliver, and if I can take it, I'm going to try to run with it. And I think that's just what I love most about my role, is kind of the transition opportunity to go from defense to offense. And really, I look at it as just trying to be like a spark for the team. And, I think I missed an opportunity last night, but, just trying to create some early offense. And I think our team in general really thrives off of, our defense making stops, and then, trying to push transition and get, I don't want to say cheap goal, because every goal is kind of earned, but a goal in unsettled offense.
I think it's the calling card really of the Redwoods in terms of that transition going from D to offense. And you just look at, just from like a roster perspective, how many guys have that capability. And that I think has been the biggest thing missing kind of so far. You guys kind of got it going a little bit more last night. Congrats on the win, by the way. But that was your calling card. I mean, last year, that I think that's what would kind of spurned your guys kind of run to the championship.
You didn't know who's fresh.
Yeah.
If I can cut the sound out of this one here. There we go. But yeah,
I would say like last night, Jack Neer, like his play, like he strips the guy and goes down and gets an assist. Like those are like huge plays. Those are huge energy plays. Those are like can kind of like propel you and just provide that spark. And Jack did it last night, and he did it in a championship game. Like he just has a knack for, kind of making big plays at like special times that really help our team. And, I'd agree. Like anytime that we can get those, like Greg Paskoljian having that face-off win to an assist to Clark Peterson last night, I think we've been missing a couple of those plays. And if we can make a few more, like I think we're going to be a very dangerous team, moving forward in these next couple of games.
Here's the 2 threat. Oh, bid on it.
Oh.
Was that Tucker, though?
Yeah,
Tucker Durkin coming through after?
Well, this is Tinny right here.
It could have been Tucker, Pafani.
Oh.
Yeah.
Atlas have some big boys.
Go back to that one more time. Mitch is focusing on the hit. I want to see this big pump fake. Tinny's like, oh.
Yeah, you just get absolutely hacked in the back after he whiffs on you. So he just turns around. He's not happy with himself.
That big throw out, Harvey. I think you got people fooled in the 2-point range. Maybe you just need to like let one and just sail it, just to like keep the myth going.
Yeah.
Well,
we had a call in high school for if we had a greaser in high school, we call Astro and just shoot it over the net. I think I might have to just start shooting some over the net just to get some respect for some of these people to think that I'm actually going to pull it.
That's just inside right there, and that's piping in. That was a great shot. We'll go back to that.
I got lucky there.
Where'd the number 40 come from? Have you always worn 40?
No, so I started wearing 40. I think the first year is when I got to Ohio Machine, and
Great double here.
I wore number 9 in high school, and it sounds corny, but like when I was like in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I would go and watch Paul play at DeMatha, and he was just obviously a great player. So number 9 I wore in youth lacrosse, and I wore it in high school. And when I went to Virginia, someone wore 9, and I requested number 11. It was just kind of like a unique number. Wore 11 for college. First year in the pros, I think I wore 11 in Denver for those first 6 games, and then I wore 60 for the Bayhawks, which was, anyone that wears any number above 50 is like, hey, we don't have anything for you. So I wore 60 with no name on the back for the first 3 games, and then my last 2 games, they finally got it custom. So I have like 2 like number 60 Bayhawk jerseys floating around. I think
the best part of that? I feel like every team had up to 57, but of course the Bayhawks had up to 60.
That is true. Yeah. So I was all my friends back home during that year. They called me little guy 60, little man 60. So I wore 60, which is like the biggest number, and it didn't fit me at all. But whatever. And then when I went
just like
to
swimming, were you like swimming in it? Was like a smock? Like
good for blocking shots.
Yeah, it wasn't a good look. I got no respect on the field. Like Mitch probably was talking trash to me about it or something. And then when I went to Ohio, I kind of just like thought of like why I play and what I want out of everything with lacrosse, and what I kind of want my game to resemble. And Brendan Looney, who went to DeMatha, went to the Naval Academy, lost his life in combat, and I just thought it was a great way to honor Brendan and his legacy, and kind of resemble his play on the field. And when people watch me, I want people to say like, oh, that kid plays like really tough. I take pride in ground balls. I take pride in my defense. I take pride in kind of doing the little things, and I get very upset with like my play. Like even last night, like getting beat topside and stuff. Like it sticks with me. But I wanted my game to resemble Brendan and what he stood for and how he handled himself on and off the field, and that's kind of why I wear 40 now today, is to honor his legacy. And I taped his initials onto my chin strap. And although I never met Brendan, I feel some sort of connection just through him being a DeMatha guy, through hearing all his stories. His mom was an employee at our high school. I was fortunate enough to meet Steve and Billy when I was younger, and I kind of I looked at it again like I want my game to represent Brendan, and I want Brendan's legacy to live on forever. And anytime I see number 40 on the field, I think of Brendan, and I think of his ultimate sacrifice for our country, and that's why I wear 40.
That's awesome. And it's funny you bring that up, because I was going to mention in the video we're watching, like you talk about those little plays between the lines that a lot of times go unnoticed, other than by your teammates or by the people who really know the game. But we talked about the tragedy uniting teams and being such a driving force. We at Cornell, we lost a defensive midfielder, George Boyardi, back in 2007, and we always talk about Boyardi's stats being the ground balls, the hustle plays, the dive outs. And so it's funny hearing you say those things, and Brendan Looney, of course, kind of the same, in that same vein. It's not about like, the highlight reel plays or scoring the goals that everyone is looking at. It's about doing those little grinder type things. And that's why I will say that the PLL has done such a great job of capturing so much good, high quality content that like you have a whole highlight reel of those plays, which are impactful plays. It's like we watch that highlight reel, and it's like those are turnovers that went from could be a goal one way that become a goal the other direction. And Ryan can speak to that because he's been watching every single play. But like those plays make a big difference, and I think more and more people are starting to notice those plays.
Well, and I think even more so. Go ahead, Pat. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that's a credit just to PLL and being, having high quality and, guys like Ryan and Paul who can kind of speak on it. But, finally putting pro lacrosse in like such a elevated space with partnering with NBC. And then, we have great guys on social media through the PLL that are able to kind of dedicate time to just not necessarily like the big goals or big assists, but kind of just the little things. So I'm thankful to be in the space I am and to have people that are able to kind of amplify some of the little things that guys out in the league are capable of doing.
And I talk to the coaches, and I think what's people don't always realize is like there's so much talent, especially like at the offensive side and in net, that like a lot of these games, just like a youth lacrosse game, are like the scrappy ground ball plays. Like everybody has all this talent. And so many of these games just come down to like the 50-50 ground balls, the efforts, the runouts, like all those little plays, because like the talent, like everybody has talent, like, right? I mean, like every single of these rosters is super deep. And so it's like a youth game in that sense of just like who wants it more, who's going to like scrap and claw for those tough ground balls.
Well, and on a lighter note, I mean, I do think, we talked about your height and your stature, but then you combine that with your speed and you look like you're just flying around out there, which I think it helps, it does get noticed. So credit to your hustle and making those little plays. One thing I wanted to touch on, you went relatively viral. What is that, about a year ago?
For what?
Oh, was there multiple? So this is the one that I remember seeing and being like, wait a second, I know that guy. This is from your Instagram, but it was on Barstool.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I mean, it's like, everyone, you're sitting on the plane, you're in the middle seat, you're like, come on. As everyone walks on, you're like, come on, anything but. Those are two large gentlemen there. Two very large gentlemen.
Yeah. That brings back some PTSD right there.
Also, are you in the very back row as well? So that doesn't even lean back.
Let me explain the situation. So we just played I think we played in DC. Yeah, we played in DC, or maybe it was Baltimore. And I stuck around for a couple of days just to see my friends and family. And it was Sunday. I work in the medical device field, so I'm in surgeries for work. And I had worked Monday morning at like 7 a.m. And of course, I decided to take like the last flight out, which was stupid on my part. But I had a flight out of BWI, which is Baltimore, and my mom's driving me to the airport. And on the way, I get a notification from Southwest saying, "Oh, your flight's canceled." And I was like, "What?" Like, I was like, I headed back to Arizona where I live. And so I'm like scrambling. I look up a flight and there's like 2 more flights out of DCA. And I'm like, all right, I'll book like the earlier flight out of DCA. And so we get there at like the nick of time. Like literally I get there just enough time to probably get through security, get my bags checked. But I realized I leave my work computer in my mom's car. So this one was on me. And I'm like, I can't do my job without my laptop, just given the software that I have for work. And so my mom's leaving. It was already like took 20 minutes to like get through like the line to drop people off. And I was like, Mom, you got to turn around. Like, I need my laptop. She's like, can I overnight it? And I was like, no, I need it for tomorrow. So she gets it to me. I missed that flight that I initially was going to go in DC. I was like, look, and that was a direct flight. I was like, look, I don't really care. I need to get to Arizona, do whatever it takes to get to Arizona. And so they're like, we have one more flight. You're the last person. It was Southwest. So like, first come, first serve. But they're like, you have the last ticket. You're boarding the last, on the last. So I was like, whatever that is. I was E60 or whatever. And so I'm like, I finally board the plane and I'm like looking around. I'm like, this is a full flight. And I'm like trying to find like where there's going to be like a seat. And like, I end up going to the back of the plane. I'm like, this is out of control. And there's one seat and it's in between these, 2 two big men that honestly, like, they probably needed 2 seats for themselves. Like, and I'm not trying to like be disrespectful, but they were pretty big. And it's actually funny. Like, I walked to the front of the plane again and I see this couple, they have like a baby. And I was like, lady, I will buy that seat from the little baby if the baby can just sit on your lap for the flight back to Arizona. And she was like, nah, like, I'm not going to do it. And I was just so rattled and so disappointed. Like, it was like the walk of shame all the way to the back of the plane. So I ended up sitting in the last row in between these two guys. And like you said, Ryan, like, you can't push your seat back. I was like sitting like this the entire flight. It was super uncomfortable. Yeah, it was bad.
And then Barstool put it up, right? And so did you get a ton of messages from everyone you knew, I'm assuming?
Yeah, like every time that video resurfaces, everyone loves it. But I got a lot of love out of that video, and I don't wish that on anyone. I don't want to recount that, but it was pretty funny that Barstool ended up reposting it a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, whenever it was.
Well, let's shift gears here. You're wearing a shirt. We actually spoke with Mike Levin last episode, who's the executive director of Harlem Lacrosse. We've worked with Harlem Lacrosse players for probably almost 10 years at our different events. But you're doing something unique with the PLL. You want to talk about how you got involved with Harlem Lacrosse and what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm wearing the Harlem Lacrosse shirt. I'm partnering up with Harlem for this PLL championship series for the. Obviously, we have 4 games, and then hopefully, we're playing on the last day and can continue to play. But just given the state of what happened with George Floyd and kind of where we are as a country, I really felt obligated to somehow give back to the community. Somehow, I think, and I have like a lot of thoughts about everything. I'm going to try to make it. So everyone can kind of understand, but just, I think a lot of fingers get pointed with the Floyd situation, with kind of racism in America, inequality. And it's, for me, it was like, how can I concretely make a change in society? And I think a lot of people point their fingers to, inner cities and say like, oh, it's for them to be blamed, or I think a lot of right now is like, oh, it's black on black crime, and for me, it's if the inner cities, if people are pointing their fingers at inner cities, it's all right. So let's go and try to make a change in these inner cities, right? If people are going to try to use that as an excuse for racism and inequality in America, then for me, I wanted to figure out how we can help solve the issue, or how we can help give back to inner cities, how we can help uplift the communities, how we can, kind of create an equal playing field for people with low socioeconomic backgrounds, for people that might look like myself or might have different backgrounds. In doing so, I kind of had some self-reflection and remember my days at Virginia when Harlem Lacrosse came and visited, and I was just so struck by the organization and that the fact that people are going into these public schools in the inner city in Harlem, and Harlem has grown now to all over the country, but the fact that they're going in and using lacrosse as a tool to uplift the community, I really wanted to just kind of help out in any way I could, and in doing so, I kind of came up with the idea of, for every ground ball that I scoop up this series, I'm going to make a donation back to Harlem Lacrosse. And although that might not be a lot, the main goal that I had in my conversations with Harlem was to obviously help raise some money, but to bring light on the nonprofit that Harlem Lacrosse is, and the fact that there's nonprofits like Harlem out there that are going into the inner cities and trying to use lacrosse as a tool to get these kids out and help better themselves. And in doing so, hopefully that these kids will go back to, their roots and, be the example, like, hey, look, I made it out, or, there's a way to make it out, and using lacrosse as a tool and being a professional lacrosse player. It was just kind of, a relationship that was super easy to form. And I put it out on my social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and I've just been blown away by the support from the lacrosse community to all those that it got forwarded to. You know, I have a gentleman that's a Virginia grad that has pledged $2,500 for Harlem Lacrosse, and I think, you know, family, friends, and have come in as well to make donations, and it's huge, especially given the climate that we're at with COVID. And you know, these kids might not be able to get back to school in the fall, so any resources and any money raised is going to be kind of directly pushed to Harlem and helping these kids with whatever challenges that they might have due to COVID, and honestly just kind of due to their background as well. So I'm happy to kind of use my platform for good and for change. And you know, I hope there's other people that are inspired to kind of either partner with Harlem, to Google research what Harlem Lacrosse is, but to also feel inspired to hopefully try to make a change in our country. I mean, this is the greatest country in the world. I'm a true believer of that. Both my parents are in the military. My cousins, my relatives are military, and they can tell you firsthand from being serving overseas that, you know, the United States is a great country. And, you know, again, for me, it's just, you know, we need to go back into our own backyards and figure out how we can fix some of our situations here to reassure that this is the greatest country in America, or excuse me, in the world.
And I think it's so inspirational, and you know, the platform that you have. And I think one of the coolest things, you know, Pat, is there was a domino effect, right? As soon as you did it, then other players kind of stepped to the table as well. And kind of on a lighthearted note, I was like hoping the Redwoods were going to like treat ground balls the same way like the Oklahoma City Thunder treat rebounds for Russell Westbrook. Like, you know, when he was like going after triple doubles, they would like box everybody out and then just let like Russell Westbrook like kind of run in and grab the rebound. I was like, maybe like the Redwoods could like box guys out and let you know, Harvey kind of run in and have like scoop extra ground balls. But go ahead.
Sorry. I was just gonna say, it's so easy for me to choose ground balls because I'm super passionate about it. You know, again, like my role on the team, like I take that personal. Like I'm there to obviously make defensive stops, but I know, like, you know, at the root of it, it's like I need to go pick up a ground ball. Like that's what's going to get my team, or help lead my team to success. So, you know, ground balls was easy. I may have dropped a couple balls in the whip snake game to pick it right back up. It didn't end up on the stat sheet, but, you know, there might have been one or two where I dropped it and scooped it right back up to try to raise some money for Harlem. But, you know, like you said, like seeing guys like Joel Tinney, who I met him at breakfast, and I never had a conversation, but I kind of just came up to him, like pat him on the back saying, hey man, like, thanks for jumping on board. Like, this is huge. And for him to tell me that like his girlfriend works for Harlem and he does give backs all the time, like that's huge. And, you know, I wanted to make sure when I spoke to Harlem that this wasn't necessarily about me. Like, I know that, you know, by me putting my face on it and using my kind of status to get behind it, I get correlated with it. But I really wanted to make sure that this was about Harlem Lacrosse, about the efforts that the volunteers, that the employees are doing, you know, is amplified, and that, you know, honestly, people that have never heard of Harlem hopefully can kind of research and look it up and see the great work that they're doing and feel inspired, kind of like we talked about. You know, Adam Gittleman's making a pledge for every save he made. And then seeing guys like Eli Gobert, or I think I'm mispronouncing his name.
Gobrecht.
Yeah, Gobrecht pledging for stats that he makes with the Archers that's going to give back to City Lax in Seattle. And Rob Pinnell is going to make pledges for Bronx Lacrosse. Is, you know, obviously I would love it to be for Harlem, but that's kind of what it's about, is like using our platforms to kind of give back to organizations and ultimately people in situations that need it the most.
No, it's truly inspirational, and it's kind of a high tides raises all boats kind of scenario there, you know.
Well, even the Twitter feud between Nick Acello and Hartford took a hard right hand philanthropic turn when they brought the out, which I was like, I was like, this is like the funniest thing, and then it turns into something so awesome. And that was one thing. Like that was like a true uplifting moment for me. Whereas like, you know, they're going back and forth at each other. Who knows how much of it is like actual? But then that happens. You're like, oh well, this is real, and this is real impact. So I think it was another cool way that this is kind of continued to grow.
It's definitely real, that kind of beat, but at the same time, like Nick Ocello has raised $10,000 for Owls Lacrosse.
Awesome!
It's crazy, yeah. Like it's, and you know, it was lighthearted. Like, hey, we want 1,000 for the debt that Hartzell owes, and the next thing you know, like people are getting seriously behind it, and you know, there's $10,000 raised that is going to go directly to Owls Lacrosse, which is going to be directly, you know, help the program and help, you know, whether that, you know, some sort of resources with, you know, school books, textbooks, you know, lacrosse equipment, whatever it may be, but it's helping these kids out that need it.
No, it was such a, like Mitch said, such a great right turn, and the awareness that the PLL assist program is kind of is going to bring shedding light on some of these groups, and obviously, you know, the feature that we did in the game about Harlem. I'm going to bust your chops, and Mitch, I don't know if you saw it, but we're doing the piece on Harlem Lacrosse in the game. We're talking about Pat's efforts, this, that, and the other, and then would you know, we've got this Disney moment, like Harvey's coming down the field. He's got a shot on goal. It's like we're rooting for it to happen. and who made the save? I guess
it was Burnlore. Yeah,
like Burnlore. Like, come on, just let the ball. Like, just it was like, like that.
I know everything about that felt right too. It's just like, you know, Epple flicking me the ball. That was like honestly the fastest I've ever ran. I felt like that was like the fastest I've ever ran in my life. And then, you know, running down the lefty alley, and if Kyle wasn't a lefty, who knows if that would have gone in. But I did shoot it like right to his stick. So it was
obviously you're in the game, so you don't know it. You know, you don't know if we're covering it. But after the game, did you like look at your phone and just like, how many messages?
I mean, obviously, you know, friends are always gonna, you know, bust my chops for whether I make a good bad play. But when I went to rewatch the game and that clip ended up popping up, I was like, I literally just blew the moment. Like that could have been like that could have been on like Harlem Lacrosse like main like website forever. Like this, like, you know, it was like you said, like a Disney moment, and I just, you know, completely ruined it. But
I gotta say the goalies have been blowing.
They can edit. They can edit that. We'll just have to like edit that and like
do another goal from like UVA.
yeah, exactly.
Well, we gotta. Oh, one thing I wanted to ask about, because I was obviously stalking your Instagram. You seem like you're a big Halloween guy. Are you pretty big on Halloween?
Some of the pictures that I posted, I kind of went not necessarily all out for Halloween, but I always get like anxiety around Halloween, like trying to make sure I have like a good costume. I think, you know, I love Halloween, but I always get like super anxious making sure I have a good. There's a good one.
There's a good.
Yep.
I wasn't sure
Michael.
if it was Prince at first or if this was MJ, but the glove gave it away.
Yeah, that's Michael. That's Michael Jackson. That was like circa like 2016, I think.
That's a good look.
4 years ago. Yeah.
That's
not natural,
is it?
That's not my real hair.
You didn't go all in with the commitment level and grow it out.
No, I had an afro in college. It was huge. Like I actually every year I would, like, for the playoffs, I would get like a crazy haircut, and I grew my hair out my just sophomore year, and my going into the playoffs I got like cornrows and everything. And then my freshman year I had like a huge flat top, like a Will Smith 80s flat top. And then I think senior year I just got like lightning bolts in the side of my head.
How are the military parents feel about the crazy haircuts?
My dad like is the typical military guy, like make your bed. You can't, like, honestly, like we couldn't even borrow the car before all of our chores were done. There was no cutting corners. My mom's pretty laissez-faire. She's awesome. But you know, they like to see me cleaned up. Right now I have sporting like a little mustache. It's a little weird look, but you get a little crazy in the bubble. So just letting it go.
Well, next up, you are taking on the Atlas at 1 p.m. on Saturday. What is
NBC?
main channel?
Yeah,
NBC, right? Yeah.
What is what is that going to be like? You get to play against your predecessor DeMatha Paul and founder of the league. What's going through your head before that game? You guys being 1-2, obviously it's a huge game for you guys.
Yeah, I think right now today's our off day, so it's really just kind of recovery, and we just played 2 back-to-backs. I'm sure at some point, either this evening or tomorrow, we'll dive deep into the film. But Atlas are good. They bring back Tucker Durkin, who is COVID free. Came back negative. They're gonna have. They have a firepower offense. Ryan Brown, Rob Pinnell, Paul, Romar Dennis, Connor Busick, who's arguably like one of the toughest guys to cover. It's going to be a tough game, but I think anything about the Redwoods is that we don't really back down from challenge, and we look forward to the challenges, and it excites us. And any opportunity to play, we're gonna welcome it and kind of have that swagger mentality that we're here to play, and really looking forward to it. I think the best thing about these games, especially the partnership with NBC, is that we're on some prime time stages, and really hoping that we're able to get some new lacrosse fans too. Like last night, I know it was late, but we played right after the Islanders and the I'm drawing a blank, and the Rangers. So hopefully that there's some fans that get to linger over and see what lacrosse is all about, and hopefully through our play that we're able to put on a good show and show the world kind of what lacrosse is all about.
Well, I gotta ask, because everyone's been talking about it. Your thoughts on Gaudette's chirps? You don't see them until the playoffs. So, what was your thoughts on it?
I think the only thing that's kind of was a little crazy was just him going up to Blaze and just literally saying you suck on live TV. But everyone talks. I talk a little trash. I try not to go too far. My personal opinion, I would have liked to see the Chaos's teammates maybe stepping up in moments like that. Or I think Blaze said something at halftime, and really nothing was done. I think the initial hit that Epple had, it was a good slide. It might have been a little too high, and then kind of the cross check was a little over the top, and I think he served his suspension for it, and he took full responsibility. But there's going to be players that are going to talk, and you got to figure out a way to stop them. So I don't think he scored against us. We did lose. They were able to score on extra man while we were man down, but it is what it is. I think being a rookie, he's going to kind of have a name for himself now, a target on his back. So for him, it's just you got to be careful. And you just got to know that you have a target, and guys are going to be after you. So,
well, I agree. I wish Epple had left it at the initial hit, because it was great for. I mean, I don't know. Like looking back, if he had just kept going, would it have been clean or a little high? I don't know, but that was a great hit, and what a nice message. I thought the best take I heard of this whole thing was from Conbro Chill. Connor Martin tweeted. He's like, I have no problem with it. He's like, but be better. It wasn't even clever. It wasn't funny. You're Canadian. Like Canadians are supposed to have good, clever chirps. And they were like, just be fun.
They weren't very good chirps. And I think like his kind of hyena laugh, which is now being parlayed. He's like the Joker of the league. I don't know. For me, it's kind of annoying, but I didn't get matched up on him. I didn't really get to talk any trash, nor I don't think I probably would have unless he said something to me. But yeah, they weren't great. And I have to, not a lot of people know this, but I don't think anyone does. Blaze, at the end of the game, their bus got back early. Chaos bus got back early, and I was out just analyzing the game with one of my buddies, Mark McNeil. And it was late at night, obviously, and Blaze comes up to us, and we were just kind of showing our sympathy for him. Like, hey, man, like, that was kind of over the top, and, we hope you're okay. And he was like, yeah, I'm fine. It's just and he stuck around until the Chrome got back, and he addressed them like man to man. Like, I thought that was like the most mature thing I've ever seen in lacrosse. Like, there's a lot of words that get said in between the lines, and sometimes guys cross it, and a lot of guys will get in your face and say the whole like "come see me after the game" type stuff. And Blaze was true to his word. Pulled Gaudette aside when their bus came and told him how he felt about it. And from my understanding, it was a civil conversation. I saw it happen, but I just really applaud Blaze for that. Not a lot of guys will really address stuff after the game, especially if it bothers them. And Blaze, sure enough, pulled him aside and had that conversation with him. So a true credit to Blaze Reardon there.
And to take that one step further, and then had 23 saves against you guys last night, setting a new PLL record. So
yeah. For you guys took
sorry.
Took the
won.
That's impressive by Blaze, that maturity.
We got our win, but just the maturity factor, and then to respond, games like that can affect a player. And he could have kind of let it sink in and just, deflated him, and they have a great backup goalie, and it arguably could have been a run for Dylan Ward to take his job, but Blaze stepped up, 23 saves, whatever it was, and had a hell of a game. And I just hats off to Blaze for handling that whole situation. And it definitely wasn't easy for him those few days. So.
Well, awesome. Well, I am personally looking forward to, I'll be at a tournament all weekend running our rider tournament. So maybe I'll get the phone going while I'm between games, but definitely looking forward to your continued success. We always follow up with some kind of quick hit questions. We already talked about one of Ryan's favorite questions, which is best restaurant you'd send from your hometown. And I think you said Cantler's. You can correct me if that's just correct, specific, but we both were coworkers, former coworkers.
Oh, really?
Not at the same time, but we both work at Cantler's, yeah.
Rite of passage, right?
That's right. Yeah. So Jimmy Cantler's, have you been there, Ryan?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
With Mitch. I went back with Mitch. They rolled out the red carpet for us,
Of course they did. That's right. But yeah, Jimmy Cantler's is my restaurant in Annapolis. Nice. So.
How about Broadneck? If you had to even narrow it down to Broadneck, do you have a go-to spot on the peninsula?
Yeah, the Point. I don't know if you know the Point. Nice restaurant right on the water. My roommate Timmy Troutner is all upset. I don't know what he wants me to say over here, but the Point in Annapolis is awesome. It's a great spot. Again,
food, right?
What's Troutner's recommendation? Get hit. What does he say?
I'm gonna guess it.
Timmy.
Timmy.
Come here. He's coming over here.
Has he just been listening to the entire interview on the other side?
Yeah. I told him to put his headphones in. He's been FaceTiming his girlfriend all bubble.
What's up, Tim? How you doing?
I'm doing well.
This is fun. This is the best. You got the headphones in. This is the best part of the bubble right now, is we can just loop guys in. You've been just watching the whole time.
Clout check. I'm here.
All right. Go ahead, Ryan.
So what? So if it's not Cantler, what are you chirping him about?
Cantler's isn't even Annapolis. It's over the bridge. It's fake Annapolis.
It's Annapolis.
All these
the address is Annapolis, Maryland.
All these guys over the 7 River Bridge, Navy Ridge, claim to be from Annapolis when they're not.
My zip code.
Cantler's is really good crabs. I would say that Mike's Crab House. It is the two best.
Mike's is not. No.
Yeah, right on the water. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Buddy's Crabs and Ribs?
Tourist trap.
I'm a Serena Park guy, so I don't call myself an Annapolis guy, but Cantler's is best in the area, I'll say. I'll go to bat for Cantler's there. 3 questions I gotta ask though. One is a tough one though. Who's best teammate you've ever played with?
So I'm gonna say 2 guys, the best teammates I've played with, just from kind of how great of lacrosse players they are, and just how good of a teammate they are, is Greg Remlian and Harbeson, 2 Hall of Famers, 2 guys that have done everything in regards to reaching the highest pinnacles of lacrosse, and then just how they handle themselves off the field and in the locker room, just being a great leader and a great ambassador for our sports. So Greg Remlian and Kyle Harbeson for sure.
Awesome. Best place to play lacrosse?
Ooh. Clockner Stadium down in Charlottesville, Virginia. I just think like when I was there, and probably still now, I haven't been there for a couple of years, but great atmosphere at night under the lights. The turf is perfect. An amazing, atmosphere. So Clockner Stadium.
Right, we dove in. I think the bubble is under attack from the Russian internet trolls. We keep losing the internet for you guys, so we dove back in. All right, final question: best lacrosse memory that you have. If you could only pick one, what are you going with?
It's tough because winning that championship in 2011 was amazing, just given the state of our team with kicking players off, and as a young kid in your backyard, practicing moves and pretending to hit and game-winning shots and pretending to cut down nets. But I think like my gut will say my 8th grade championship game, because great coach that a lot about my life, stuff that I still carry with myself today. And the way that state championship was run in Maryland is like the winner of the Anne Arundel County Championship will play the winner of Baltimore County, and traditionally Baltimore County just kind of sweeps and runs it all. But that 8th grade season, we had a ton of Division I kids that ended up playing Division I, and we won the championship. I was fortunate enough to hit the game-winning shot with like 2 seconds left. But I would go with that because it just really proved that year and that game that I could be a good lacrosse player, and it was just a memory that I hold today. I still have like a piece of net from that 8th grade championship game, even though that sounds silly. But it was just a moment that kind of was just reassuring for my athletic career, and just kind of really gave me that confidence and kind of the swagger mentality that, I can play lacrosse at a high level.
Was that AYLA that team was?
I was big on that area sport, just because I played AYLA and Broadneck. So I played for Bays, and I don't know if you guys would know any of these names, but we had the Cooper brothers who played at Maryland, John Hogan who played at Cornell, Jake Haley who was a goalie at Georgetown, Quinn Haley who played attack at Maryland were all on my team, Pat Manley who played at Penn State. We had a really good team, and we were just a group of really just friends that all ended up being on the same team and became teammates. And through the guidance of our youth coach, kind of came together and really drew that, or like really grabbed that love for lacrosse out of us and helped propel us in life.
That's awesome. And the only problem with that is you're kind of sticking a fork in my argument when coaches come up complaining about the scores at our tournaments. I'm like, in 10, 20 years, they're never going to remember this. But apparently they're bad.
Lacrosse,
they might. But that's
lacrosse is different.
That's a real championship. Right?
Yeah. Look, lacrosse is different. Youth lacrosse is different now than it was back then. Like back then, we would play for our cities and in the counties, and now it's club driven, which I think is taking the right direction, just given lacrosse's growth. But yes, I'll always remember it, and it'll always be with me. So
I love hearing that, and those are it's a great list of teams. But I despite some of the internet difficulties that we fought through, I really appreciate you taking time out on your off day. Spent a good chunk of time. I guess we're setting the new time record because with players in the bubble, because there's only so much going on. But really appreciate learning more about you and your journey, and excited to watch you continue through this exciting championship series. It's been a ton of fun to watch. I know Ryan has been doing a great job calling it. So thanks, Pat.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here. Really appreciative of it, and hope to continue to scoop up some ground balls and help the Redwoods get to a championship.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Pat. Really appreciate it.